All right, good morning, everyone. It is August 26th at 9:36 a.m. This is a special meeting of the town council. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Boom.
All right. I'm just happy I was able to get through that with all the echoes and everything. All members of town council are present, besides Vice Chair Lapellis. I ask that communication items A and B be incorporated into the minutes of our meeting. Item 4, public participation. I will ask the first selectman assist me with public participation this morning, as we are not in person.
Be happy to do, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Kellogg, can you inquire as to if anyone would like to publicly participate at this time?
Certainly. Anyone who would like to participate in public participation, please either raise your virtual hand if you are joined on the web, or unmute yourself on the phone and indicate a desire to speak. And if necessary, I will compile a list for the chairman. One more time, anyone who wishes to speak during this public participation, please remember to unmute yourself and indicate a desire to speak. Mr. Chairman, I do not have anyone who has indicated a desire to speak at this time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kellogg. I'm closing public participation for this meeting. Item 5, new business. We have one resolution, Resolution 22-105, to consider and act upon a resolution regarding memorandum of understanding with Grasso Companies, LLC. I move that Town Council adopt Resolution 22-105, resolve that Kenneth M. Kellogg, first selectman of the town of Monroe, is authorized to execute and deliver on behalf of the town of Monroe the memorandum of understanding and any associated documents by and between the Grasso Companies, LLC, for state project number 84-109, reconstruction of Pepper Street project. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Mauer. Discussion, Mr. Kellogg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you're all well aware from the prior a couple of meetings where we've discussed this topic, we've been endeavoring to ensure that this project proceeds as expeditiously as possible, given some of the prior delays that have been experienced. As I reported last time, I'm pleased that the contractor had committed to a November 15th substantial completion timeframe. As I mentioned, or as the town attorney elaborated at the last meeting, we were working to reduce that to writing with a revised schedule, as well as to resolve any prior potential claims that may have existed. There are certain claims that Grasso may have as relates to increased costs that they've experienced that we are not agreeing to at this time, but have been reserved for future discussion, pending approval by the state of Connecticut for those costs, because as you recall, the town is only, we get reimbursed for all but 10% of these costs. So we want to ensure that that any increased cost for those would not exceed the 10%. So with that, I'd ask that the town attorney highlight anything further. I would note that we've also added additional retainage to the project from here on forward as well. Other than that, Mr. Lito, is there anything you'd like to elaborate on before we ask for further questions?
Thank you, Mr. Kellogg. No, not specifically. I think generally my opinion letter covers my comments and opinions on this matter. I think you highlighted those. Essentially, what the MOU does is it provides a fresh, new, clean slate with an agreed upon schedule that's been vetted by our department heads and our consultant at BL Company, and has been agreed to by Grasso, which does maintain a project completion date by the end of the construction season, actually before. It also identifies all outstanding claims by all parties, and as I indicated, expressly sets those forth, and while at the same time creating a clean slate so both parties are moving forward from the effective date of this agreement, which would be today, moving forward, and with an understanding that's been well vetted, well discussed, and agreed upon by all parties. And so I think it's obviously in the town's best interest. I think ultimately this is an agreement that works for all parties. Anybody who's been involved knows how hard we've worked on this matter since Mr. Kellogg assigned my legal team to this matter, and I'm happy with the finished product. Obviously, I would recommend that council enter into this agreement since it's been provided to you. Grasso has executed. I did provide the executed copy to Mr. Kellogg this morning. So upon town council's authorization for the first selectman to execute this, it will be a binding agreement effective today, and resolves, as I said, identifies and resolves all issues with this project as of today, and provides a much clearer schedule moving forward.
Thank you. And I would just like to add, from a practical standpoint, I think anyone who's been in that area, as challenging as this, the scope of this project is, there's clearly extensive amount of work that is occurring. So clearly they are continuing to work this project in the spirit of not just the original, but in the spirit of getting this MOU forward and getting the project completed. There is extensive work occurring in that area at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Kellogg. To begin discussion of town council members, I will note that this matter was reviewed by LNA at a meeting at 9:20 this morning. It was referred to the town council for its full consideration. Frank, I did have a question or two. First was during LNA, I had asked the first selectman if the state has any input into this MOU, or if we are free to execute this without prior state approval. Is that your understanding?
The state does not have any specific input. They were not interested in providing input. We did have a meeting with the state. The state fully supports the town's positions on this, and has essentially provided very good oversight and guidance to us with respect to the areas that were requested. This is a contract with privity between Grasso and the town specifically. Financially, it's backed by the state and federal government on 80-10-10. So, they have involvement. It's a state form contract, but this agreement essentially is between the town and Grasso.
Okay. Thank you. And then my other question was, it came up in LNA, just so for other town council members to hear the answer to it, that the town is only on the line for its 10% portion if the state approves the expenditures recommended by BL. Is that right, Frank?
Correct. Generally, I mean, there are a number of buckets. The agreement highlights or defines reserved claims. There's a specific carve out for those reserved claims. If the state essentially approves those claims, then the town is responsible for its pro rata share, which is 10%. There's another portion of the contract balance that's been disputed. And again, that part of the contract balance and the dispute is not in the legal sense of the term. It's just these construction requisitions of a project of this magnitude go through a process that's very stringent. It's a lot of work, and oftentimes verification takes longer. So we've agreed on a contract balance, which is set forth in that agreement. We've not yet come to an understanding through our consultant BL as to the propriety of the additional amount, which is referenced as disputed contract balance. So that will go through the normal process pursuant to the underlying contract. Obviously it will then be approved or denied by BL, and there'll be a process internally, and then ultimately that'll go up to the state. But yes, whatever amounts are approved by the state, the town's liability would be 10%. And as it stands right now, with respect to the amounts that we know, these amounts are not exceeding the contracts or any change orders at the present time.
All right, thank you, Frank. So I will open up to other town council members. I think the best way to facilitate this is I will go down a list of town council members that are present and ask if they have any questions. So I'll begin. Ms. Martin, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have one technical question. I don't know about anybody else, but I just received this last evening, the memo and the opinion from the town attorney. And can't say I'm not, but I'm very uncomfortable acting on something this morning that I received last evening. It's a lot of legalese, as everyone knows. Some people are familiar with that, some of us are not. So it was going through it and trying to understand it. I appreciate the explanation from the town attorney, which was helpful in my understanding. But why do we get this so late and have to act on it this morning with a special meeting?
Thank you, Ms. Martin.
Is that a question for me, or is that a question for the first selectman?
Well, whoever feels comfortable answering that.
I mean, I can start. I can tell you that we've been working on this this MOU. This has been a complex project with respect to boots on the ground. It's a complex project with respect to paperwork and requisitions, and it's a complex project as it relates to the potential disputes that are involved that surround ultimately the delays. And without pointing fingers and without having a full discussion about all of that, this didn't come together until late last night. And the reason why it came together late last night was because of the monetary dispute and amounts, to be 100% sure that our numbers jive with Grasso's numbers and ultimately are approved by BL. And that's why it took so long. There was a substantial change in the agreed upon amount. We had to wait on our consultants, and unfortunately it didn't come together until late last evening.
And I would just add to that certainly I know we discussed quite a bit at the last meeting, but we did reference the fact that that this would be forthcoming, that an MOU would be forthcoming, and that we would seek to act upon it in a very expeditious fashion, being that time was of the essence. And our strong demand to have Grasso put as many resources as they could bear to put on this project. So in the spirit of us working together towards that conclusion, we wanted to in good faith have the town act on this as quickly as possible.
And if I could follow up on the first selectman, what I was going to say is this, while it seems like there's a lot of legalese in here, and I don't disagree, Ms. Martin, there certainly when lawyers draft anything, it becomes fairly more complicated than the average layperson is used to. I do think that the sum and substance of what's in this agreement was fully discussed and vetted in the last town council meeting, both publicly and in executive session. So I don't think there's anything in this agreement that the council was not fully aware of.
Okay.
Right. Thank you.
I have an additional question, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
The term substantial completion, what exactly does that mean?
It's a construction term that's commonly used, and it essentially means that the project will be completed, and it will, with respect to this project, it will be passable and be able to be used. It'll be obviously some closeout work that is always required at the end of projects. So that would be actual completion, final completion, but substantial completion. Will there be an inspection? And if the inspection passes at that point in the construction process, it will be substantially complete enough where we can approve the use of the road as it was intended. And that's kind of a general explanation. If there's subject matter experts from the town that want to expand upon that, I'll defer to them. But that's essentially what the term means as far as it's defined in the contract.
So who decides that substantial completion? Is that the state or is that locally? Do we decide that?
We have a consultant. Our consultant is going to conduct inspections, and they're going to recommend that the inspections are approved. I don't know what state oversight will be involved in that process, as it's a municipal project, but I'll defer to our town employees for subject matter discussion on that.
Thank you, Mr. Leo. Yeah, I don't believe the state would be involved. It would be a local decision upon the the passing of the final inspection by BL, our inspection consultant. I know Mr. Nowacki, our Director of Public Works, is on the line. He could speak further in regards to substantial completion, but as the town attorney referenced, you would have what would look and feel like a completed roadway, but there could be punch list items remaining, as we had discussed at the last meeting. So that's what that term means. Mr. Nowacki, can you elaborate a little bit on that, please? And you're still muted, by the way.
Hello, can you hear me? I'm on the phone. My computer won't work audio-wise for some reason.
I can hear you now.
Yeah, so substantially complete will be exactly that: a passable road, paved surface, curbing. Obviously, all drainage and utilities will be in place. The punch list items will be things that they may encounter toward the end of the construction season, referencing plantings, and as we call it on our end, restoration work, just the finish work. That those would be the punch list items that would remain, that wouldn't directly affect the travelable surface of the roadway.
Thank you, Mr. Nowacki.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mauer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Really, one quick question for our town attorney. Most of my questions were answered already, so thank you for that. My one question, sorry, just switching between the screens here, deals with the section on the updates for the town. It's paragraph 10. And I guess it's also possibly a question for the selectmen, and that it's the updates it's saying would be provided as requested by the town. Do we have an idea of how often we're planning on requesting these? Is it going to be based off of what we're seeing being complete? Just what the planned process for that is?
Yeah, as I said at the last council meeting, one of the requirements that I had was to be able to provide
21,
a more
558 Main Street, Monroe Diner, for the 70-year-old male post-choke victim, possibly having some difficulty breathing. EMS is being dispatched.
trying to find that. Hold on, I'm trying to find that. Franzie's iPhone. All right.
Francie.
I am going to mute. Oh, they're gone. Okay, sorry about that. So as I said at the last meeting, my requirement was to ensure that we were getting kind of a more, not just timely, but kind of more easily communicated status of what was going on there, at least every couple of weeks, so that we could, the town, we could communicate better to the public in terms of what was going to be happening in the upcoming work that would be done and where we are on progress. So that's why that item is added in there, and this would really just be kind of a supplement to the existing project team meetings where we would require something that would allow us to do that, basically, make sure that we had clarity on exactly where they were working and exactly what efforts were being planned. And that's specifically because that was, in the past, that was changing over time a little bit more than we had expected. And that will happen. Obviously, there's sometimes where plans have to change just based on circumstances, but we want to at least be able to give everyone a more digestible update going forward. And that's why that item 10 is in there.
I think I'm more asking just, are you planning on asking, let's say every 2 weeks, or
Yes.
are you planning? Okay.
Minimally, yeah.
Okay, perfect. And then one question for our town attorney, in negotiating this MOU, were there any major terms that you had wanted to be able to include in here that you were unable to, or were you able to get most of the items that you felt were important to this agreement?
We got 100% of the items that we wanted to include in this agreement.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Jason. Jessica, anything?
No, I'm good.
Thank you. Sean, anything?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just want to go over a couple of points with regards to the L&A review of this issue that we're talking about this morning. Was that unanimously agreed to, or I'm just curious, and I didn't hear how that went out. Were there outstanding
Sure.
questions from L&A, or was it?
Yes, Mr. O'Rourke, L&A unanimously referred this matter to town council for its consideration. There were a number of questions regarding the contract, and those were answered by the first selectman.
Okay, so that part of the process seemed to work as normal and as well as it usually does. With regards to town council's role in all this, I mean, I'm listening to the back and forths and such. I mean, town council, from my view, we depend on outside expertise and opinion to try to move forward, along with our own internal L&A review and other factors. So that seems to be satisfactorily met in this particular instance, particularly the fact that this has been a subject matter that's been brought up and discussed previously to this meeting today. Mr. First Selectman, if I could, just want to review the project responsibility, chronology a little bit. So just to reemphasize, this is a state project with the state of Connecticut engaging in the contract with Grasso, the head contractor.
It's actually, so the way
Special
this is
town
a
meeting this morning called emergency meeting about pepper.
John's iPhone. I'm going to mute you, Mr. John's iPhone. As relates to, I'm sorry, is this the way this project was originally conceived through the grants? And this is, remember, this is a federal grant of 80, it covers 80%, the state covers 10%. The way this was done at the time was that the town actually is in the contract with Grasso, but we're compelled to utilize the state contract that they provide. So the state provides a master agreement, which we're a party to, and then from there, the state contracts utilizing the prescribed agreement with Grasso directly. So the town is a party to this with Grasso, but it is, so from that perspective, it's a little bit of a hybrid. It is, certainly the town has a more active role in regard, and that's in regards to our engagement with BL companies as our consultant to do those inspection services as relates to the project. But it's more of a, I guess I would call it more of a joint effort than strictly a state project, if that makes sense.
All right. Well, just maybe just to clarify a little bit, did the town of Monroe, does it or did it have any input with regards to who the final contractor would be for this project that was federally and state, generated?
Yeah, the town conducted an RFP quite some time ago. And from those selections, Grasso was determined to be the selected contractor based upon their bid submission, and that was the kind of condition precedent to the original approval of that agreement. So there's certainly, it would following the normal RFP process.
Understood. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Sean. Donna Lynn?
Hi, yeah, just one question. In the MOU, it's item 2. There's an additional amount of balance that Grasso is seeking. Just a question about that is that if it's not resolved in a timely fashion, would that affect the adherence by Grasso to the MOU and still completing this project?
Frankly, though, speaking, I don't think that was the spirit. The answer is no. The short answer is no. The spirit of that addition is essentially there were delays in processing the paperwork that was required to approve the requisitions on both ends, and essentially there was a dispute as to why there was some delay, and as a result of the negotiation of this MOU, which has taken place over the last month, Grasso did commit as Mr. Kellogg, making him an attorney now. Mr. Kellogg did indicate that Grasso, and it's probably evident to those that use that road or in that area, has committed substantial resources to moving this project forward. So during the last 30 days, what everybody wanted to do is just set an expectation that the parties will work together quickly to try to process the requisitions in light of the last 30 days being essentially on hold as a result of the negotiation of this MOU, and with the further knowledge that they've devoted a lot of resources to the project now, so that process is going to be more cumbersome than it was before. So it's just an understanding, it's an MOU that both parties are going to work together. It's probably not necessary, but it's not dispositive.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Thanks. Terry, anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, at this time, I think most of my questions are answered. I'm very happy to. No, I wasn't completely aware that the state was responsible for a large amount of this project, so I'm happy to hear that. Knowing the amount of details that go into these projects and the escalation in materials, dealing with that, the capital project, the EMS building, I sympathize with these guys because I know it's not easy to complete these projects the way they were intended to be completed. So I'm appreciative of the first selectman, town attorney, his team, being diligent in this and getting to a peaceful resolve so we can move forward. Definitely saw a lot of progress in the last week, so it's all good. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Kevin, anything?
No.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor of adopting resolution 22105, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those against, please say nay. Hearing no nays, this passes 8-0. I am going to adjourn the special town council meeting at 10:05 a.m. Thank you, everyone.